Requirements are items that are important to the business goals. Requirements are related to measurement. For example, one requirement might be that the service is responsive to users. That requirement is embodied in an objective, such as no more than half-second latency in responding to customer request. And the objective is supported by a measurable indicator, such as measuring round-trip time between user request and delivery of a result. This lesson covers gathering requirements and things to consider and discuss that will help identify requirements.
Let's move into gathering requirements. So we understand what our objectives might be. Now let's gather the requirements to achieve these. So a design always starts by simply asking questions. In fact, you can write stories this way. Just ask questions. Who's the main character? What do they do? What do they look like? Are they old? Do they have problems? Right? If you just continuously ask yourselves questions, it's amazing what you can design on anything actually. So in this section, you're basically going to learn about asking questions that can help define service level objectives. And this is going to be helpful in thinking through the design decisions later. So step number 1, qualitative requirements. Why? Well, why is the system needed or desired? Do I really need to have another dashboard? Right? What problem does it solve? Can I use anything else? Who are the stakeholders? Is it really that accounting guy? Is he that special? Should I go ahead and create this dashboard for this? If so, who's going to develop it? And what is in scope? Do I have team members? Are they going to continuously change the requirements on us? So what is feasible with the amount of time that I can spare these resources? What does this system need to do? Well, this is going to be a dashboard. Well, what are the priorities? Is it required versus a nice to have? Well, it is a dashboard, and the marketing people aren't going to be really using it. They have very important dashboards because they're driving revenue. Right? See how quickly we can determine and potentially prioritize something else over that. Well, I think that's always our goal, right? And then when? Well, when do you need it by? Do you need it by this weekend? Is there any time value trade-offs? Perhaps I have contractors. If I need to put them and pay them over the weekend, just so you can have it on a Monday. Right? We should always push back and at least understand the business requirements and understand how they'll affect the technical. So many companies I've worked in small businesses, it was drop everything, do this now. Oh, drop everything, do that now. Nothing ever gets finished. There wasn't a bi-directional communications. Expectations weren't ever set. It almost felt like we weren't even allowed to. But if you take this process, in this way you can communicate, set expectations, and really define and achieve your end goals. Step 2, defining the quantitative requirements. That's time, data, and users. So again, defining how much time we will allow this to be down. What is the cost of data? Here's a big one. I used to sell storage, and people would say, I never want to lose a bit of data. If I do lose data or I have to go back and archive it, I want it back in 30 minutes or less. Well, what this does is this drives up the financials tremendously. And so you have to understand, well, okay, the redundancy of the data. Well, how fast do you need it? How fast will it grow? I mean, do we need to go to fiber channel? Do maybe 10 gig Ethernet? Depends on what you might want to do. Who are the users? Where are they going to be? Are they going to be close to the data? If they're going to be close, you can change your strategy. If they're going to be all over the world, now you're starting to think about caching. You're thinking about replication. Quite a bit here. And again, the users will define data. They will also define time. If I have to fail over to Tokyo and my data is not there, how do I recreate that scenario, replicate that data? A lot of things to think about. So in that case, then you're going to get into scaling. Here, we were only defining what our existing users are. What happens if we had unexpected growth? So what resource constraints are going to be important to pay attention to? Am I going to be worried about state? Am I going to worry about my data storage, my front-end servers, my back-end servers? In fact, we're going to deal with all of those. What about size requirements? Quick trivia question. Who knows what this building is? I had the good fortune of visiting the very top. It's right about here. You can actually go outside. It's the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Amazing views. Definitely recommend a trip out there. It is literally like Blade Runner, the year 2200, on what the world could look like. Very fascinating place. But it's also a great example of size. So when we're understanding how do we create dimensions around this size? I mean, in this case here, I've seen people overbuy product, which may or may not have been necessary. Or, depending on where they might grow, they may have started with something like MySQL. But guess what? MySQL doesn't scale. It's a vertical scaling one. And they could have started and been better off, say, with a NoSQL, horizontal scaling. They could have given up some eventual consistency for relational. There are things when you got to think about that size. Imagine how big it could get, and are you choosing the right solution in the beginning? That's a lot of information. Let's go ahead and start thinking.
In this module, you learned about the layered design model. That's the organizing principle of this class. You also learned about state information, which is a key limiting factor in design. and you learned about the importance of measurement and how requirements and measurements are related through indicators and objectives.